face is dropped on a Thursday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down Here. January 17th is the date. Jason Longshore, John Nelson here with you this morning. Jarrett Smith will probably appear when I call him out for not being here yet. He'll show up and start yelling because that's what happens. Lots of stuff to get into today. Silly season is getting sillier, as it always does. Marcelo Bielsa gave a tactical masterclass in a press conference yesterday. Josef Martinez had some incredible statements after signing a new 5-year deal with Atlanta United. And Carlos Vela is being linked to Barcelona. All kinds of stuff. Felipe Cardenas will try to make some sense of all of it with us at 9:30 as well. But let's start with Bielsa because, I mean, John, you've been involved in this for a long time. I've followed sports since I can remember time. I've never heard of, seen, envisioned what happened yesterday at Leeds with Bielsa's press conference. I mean, we were getting the tweets before we went off the air that, oh, yeah, he's going to resign. And Leeds had the greatest response ever in a tweet to that, which was amazing. I mean, anytime a club is going to use a Wolf of Wall Street gif, I'm excited about it. But Bielsa did something that, I mean, I don't think anybody's ever done at this kind of level and with this much attention.
No, and everyone's anticipating, okay, you know, he's going to pack it in, when all he does is lay out the studying tactics for everyone that he's played this year. And it was a thing of beauty. It's, yeah, okay, so you think we did it just against Derby? No. We did it with everybody. And he comes out of it.
Yeah, that's not even the lead, though. I mean, that's the thing about it is it's not the whole thing was not Bielsa coming out and saying, guess what? I've spied on all of you. That wasn't it. It was, I'm obsessed and I study everything. Videos, games, I watch them twice. I can tell you what happened in the 30th minute in a game 5 weeks ago if you just ask me right now. The way I took it, it wasn't to say, like, you know, yeah, I've been doing this to everybody. It was, I don't need to do this. I've got a problem.
That's what he said.
But it doesn't do anything to help me because I've already done all this. It's not helping because I already knew it. It's crazy.
And yeah, and it's just, and that's what he said. It's just, I'm paraphrasing again, but it was just like, you know, I shouldn't do this. I don't need to do this, but I do it anyway. And it's just how he's wired as an individual. And to get that in a separate press conference about how obsessed to detail he is to his own detriment from his own point of view. I mean, when you come out with a spreadsheet of the entire rundown of the season, and then it's like, okay, ask me about a game, any game. And the reporter sits there and they'll go, okay, game 11. And so it goes into a file and it's like, okay, here's what, you know, what's going on with game 11. Give me another one. Game 27. Okay. Then they go, just how is it a word when it comes to this?
No.
Because it's just like, you know, how you do what you think you need to do to succeed. And in Bielsa's case, I guess he feels that it's to his own detriment, the amount of detail he spends on all of this stuff, even though he is the student of the game that he is and the master of the game that he is. So I thought it was a masterclass in press conference about laying out who he is as an individual to set things apart from getting ready for Stoke. And basically it was just a window to everyone else to sit there and say, okay, here's who you're dealing with. And this is what I do. And this is who I am. And I do entirely too much of it, but this is just how I'm wired. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, I love that Sky Sports sent Tim Thornton, one of their reporters, to the press conference, and the piece at skysports.com just ended up Tim Thornton basically just talking about how blown away he was by the whole thing. And, he said, we go to press conferences every week in this job, and this is something you never see. He gave us an incredible amount of detail about the amount of preparation that goes into each game. Bielsa's not the only one who does this. And, yeah, I saw Frank Lampard's very flippant intro to, I guess, his media availability, where I thought it was incredibly dismissive, borderline rude. I don't think it was a smart play for Frank Lampard to do that the way he did, especially after losing to the guy, just saying. Yeah. I didn't think it looked good. But Pep Guardiola does this. A lot of the greats do this. We talk about it. It's like a badge of honor that Nick Saban barely leaves the Alabama football facility. Kirby Smart, same thing. It's stuff that gets talked about. But you've never had any other coach manager, I think, go into this type of detail. Not just say, yeah, work hard. I'm here at sun up. I'm not gone at sundown. I'm here all the time. You hear that, but you never see this. But this was an explanation of why he goes to the lengths of having staff members go try to watch a training session. And he's done this for many jobs. But the important thing here, and I think some outlets have completely missed it, the important thing here is not that, he's had people watch training sessions. First off, I think in this sport, watching a training session doesn't necessarily give you that much. It really doesn't. You think it does. You might learn some stuff about individual players. You might learn some set-piece routines. That's probably the biggest thing you can get out of it. But in terms of how players perform in matches, you're not getting that out of a training session. And I think what Bielsa was really saying here, one was I'm a manic obsessive, and I have some issues with that. Yes, that's number one. El Loco is not just a nickname. It's a way of life for Marcelo. But I think it was kind of a hit at the whole, was it illegal what he did? Well, no, not if people are standing on public property and looking over a fence or watching this or watching that. If he had used the bolt cutters or used the pliers or whatever, then maybe it's a different thing, and we don't know if that's happened. But watching another team's training session is not necessarily illegal. It was the whole, it's against the fair play rules. And, Bielsa said many times, look, if people have a problem with the way I do this, I get it, and I should not do it then. But this is how I've always done. I don't know the unwritten rules. We talk about this with baseball all the time, those unwritten rules that nobody knows about. But, oh, man, when you step over them, people get really riled up.
Sign stealing.
All of it. It's stupid. So this whole thing yesterday with Bielsa was an explanation of, yeah, you guys are zeroing in on one of my people watching a training session, but I don't need to do it. I do it because I'm that obsessed. And, it ended in Tom Thornton's piece over at Sky Sports. He said, he closed it by saying he was stupid because he didn't need all this information, and then he got up and walked off. And he had all the information. He doesn't need to go watch a training session that he's not going to learn anything new from. Pep Guardiola told him when he was with Athletic Bilbao, said, Pep after the game said, you know more about my side than I do. That's the thing here about Bielsa. And I retweeted a piece from 442 back in September about, really deep background on who he was, and lots of great quotes from Tata Martino and Mauricio Pochettino, and just basically he has kind of set the standard for management. Doesn't mean he is the best out there, because I think at times those obsessive qualities get in the way of Bielsa having success. I think it's a problem for him, and that's why it's hard for him to stay anywhere for any period of time, because he burns himself out. How can you not, when you look at all these spreadsheets and video clips and I don't know what his library is now of videos and magazines and books and all of it. The guy is everything that's been written, said, shown on tape about a potential opponent. He's got it. that will wear you out. And that is, I think, one reason why he has not had the success that maybe some others who have followed him have. Pep being a prime example. I think maybe Pep, as obsessive as he is, has learned to manage it a little bit better. But it's crazy that Bielsa was able to turn the whole conversation about Spygate and this on its head to say, yeah, I did it. I didn't even need to do it, but I did it because I'm that obsessed with the whole thing. It really makes you feel differently about it, even if you had a problem with the Spygate part of it. It does make you feel different about it, I think. I'll be curious to see what the whole general reaction is in England as this goes on.
Well, for me, I just wonder now, after what we saw with Bielsa yesterday, how many people view Lampard as the bad guy in all of this.
That's a tough one. I didn't like his flippant response to the press conference. That's the part that I think was a bad look for Lampard. The complaint about fair play, I don't really have as much of a problem with that, to be honest, because you're talking about two different cultures. And I think Bielsa hit on this as well. Like, you're talking about a coach who grew up in Argentina and that culture of win at all costs. Whatever advantage you can find, you're going to find it, and you're going to take it, and you're going to win, and you're going to lift the trophy. That is what it is. Now, Bielsa wants his teams to play with a style and a flair, but it's about winning. It's about winning and doing whatever it takes. There is still, and probably, I'd say probably more so in England than anywhere else in the world, there is still that ideal of sport and probably going back to an amateur type of code and even an Olympic type of code about doing the right thing in sport and the fair play, unwritten rules, all that kind of stuff. It's still there maybe in England in soccer more than anywhere else. And that's a clash of cultures that I don't really have a problem with Lampard being upset by a Leeds employee being asked to leave the vicinity of the training ground because he was trying to watch. That's fine. Use it for fuel so your team gets a result. That would probably be a little bit better. But, you know, I'm more curious to see what happens with these supposed investigations from the English Football League and the FA about breaching charters for the club and the league and this and that. That's what I'm curious about. Like, was there actually something broken? And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to try to get this guy suspended, fired, run him out of the league, run him out of the country, that type of stuff? Or are you going to understand that, hey, this is a difference in culture. This is an opportunity to actually learn and grow from everybody, and let's figure that out and take the right approach here, because it'd be a horrible thing for the English Football League, for soccer in England as a whole, if they try to run Bielsa out due to this.
And I'm just wondering how rash the EFL is going to be in all of this. And this is what I want to, I'm going to have a keen eye as to how they view this, considering how Bielsa has thought and operated for his entire career as a coach who has an incredible attention to detail and does things a certain way, even though his culture and his upbringing and his idea of what it takes to succeed is far different than what is perceived in England. And so for me, I'm going to keep an eye on the EFL and see what they think is a quote-unquote appropriate punishment. Is it points? Is it a suspension? Is it, a fine? And then and that to me would be the precedent going forward for something like that. But I think that this is the first time that I can remember where you have a coach who is sitting there and saying, okay, this is how I've done things and in all of my previous stops. And so now that I'm here, yes, okay, it's a different thing, but now I want to see how the EFL reacts.
The EFL would be incredibly foolish, I think, to do anything more than fines, slaps on the wrist. If you want to maybe throw a token suspension of a game or something, okay. If you feel like you need to do that to make your point, but this needs to be an opportunity to move forward. And yeah, okay, this is not the culture in England, and I don't. What I really liked about the way Bielsa handled this, because it's a conflicted kind of thing, you know. I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, you're not having Spygate where you're going to send employees out to go try to watch a training session. I think Bielsa made a very compelling case yesterday that it didn't honestly matter. It didn't reveal anything. He already knew all that, and it's his own issues that led to that happening. It's not finding a competitive advantage because he's already done all the work to have that competitive advantage. But there is a bad look to it, and I think he admitted that, and I think he's been very clear in saying, look, you know, if this is the way here, then I need to adapt to the way here. And I think that's a very important thing. I think this is an opportunity for everything to move forward and not get so hung up on punishment and this and that. I'm sure there are other managers in the English Football League who do things along these lines. It's not like Bielsa's the only manager in the world who has ever done anything like this. I would be willing to bet that most have. This is maybe a step beyond that. He says he does it all the time and this and that, but this is an opportunity, I think, for him to adapt now to England and understand the English culture a little bit more. And it's an opportunity, I think, for the English culture to learn, okay, there are other ways that things happen in other countries, and we need to be maybe a little more understanding of that as well. We'll see what happens. I'm curious, but if you haven't had a chance to read about or to see the Bielsa press conference yesterday, it's fascinating. And if you're interested in coaching and the level of detail it takes to prepare as a manager, go check it out, because Marcelo Bielsa gave you a glimpse into things that you would not normally get. And that press conference yesterday was why people have said that if you're a former player and you're considering becoming a manager, you should go talk to Marcelo Bielsa. Like, he's that oracle in a lot of ways, and you should go spend time with him and understand what it is to do this. And when Pep Guardiola made that decision, he was able to go to Bielsa's house and spent 11 hours with him talking about the game and understanding that, yeah, this is what I want to do, and I want to do it like this. I want to do it as good as this. He's one of the all-time greats, and the trophies doesn't necessarily represent Bielsa's greatness. He's created coaching trees that, again, have gone on to maybe have more success than him, because they don't have that obsessive quality that he has, or at least they're able to keep it in check a little bit better. But Bielsa's impact on the game is immense. So take an opportunity if you can today and check that out and read through it and check out just the level of preparation that he puts in to a match. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's talk a little bit about Josef Martinez and his new 5-year deal here in Atlanta. It broke yesterday during our show. Incredible quote from Josef that we have to talk about after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, Do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. We'd love to hear your Thursday thoughts on Marcelo Bielsa, on Josef Martinez, on anything else in the soccer world. Share them with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here, and we'll get into them as we go today. Felipe Cardenas will be joining us in our next segment to talk about this guy, Josef Martinez. New 5-year deal with Atlanta United. Don't know the dollar figures yet. Won't know publicly until the Players Union releases that information. I think it's usually in April or early May that they release it. But the quote that just blew me away yesterday, there's two. And let me just read through this, and we'll talk about it a little bit, John. Surely right now in Venezuela, they're saying negative things about me because they have a mediocre mentality. For them, they think I should be playing in Real Madrid. For me, this is my Barcelona or my Real Madrid. It's not about me being a star. This team has 11 stars on the field, plus all the substitutes in the team, plus everyone who works here at the club. I came from a humble neighborhood, so $1 more or less isn't going to change who I am. I'm not worried about the money. If I was, I'd go play in China. That's not why I chose here. It's because of the affection and the care that everyone has shown me from both the club and the city. That's what's important. Let's start at the beginning about the mentality. And I've seen a few things about this. I don't know how widespread it is in Venezuelan media or the soccer fans who follow the national team. I don't think Josef Martinez is a Barcelona or Real Madrid player. I think we all understand that. But what he's getting at here is it's the same thing that happened to Landon Donovan. It is. It's the same thing about, well, you're a great player. You should be somewhere better. It's a crazy mentality when you get down to it, John. And I think what Josef has shown here versus his time in Torino, what Landon Donovan showed in his time in the U.S. playing in Major League Soccer is some players, not everybody, but some players perform their best where they are most comfortable. And that's a big part of getting the best out of certain types of players. I think Josef's one of those guys.
And that's just how folks are wired. You know, if you're in an environment,
not everybody,
where,
let's be fair, not everybody.
True. Okay.
You know, some people do get more out of being pushed. Some players, some athletes do. Absolutely. It's not an either or thing, but I think it definitely shouldn't be either or the other way as well. It should be players find where they're comfortable.
Yeah, folks are wired differently, bottom line. And if you're wired a certain way where you feel that the camaraderie and everyone lifting each other and chasing a common goal as a group and you being a part of that group is where you think you will best be who you are. And it's different. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's sport, if it's business, if it's digging a ditch. If you feel that being a part of a team makes you the best you that you are, then that's where you're going to gravitate toward. And so for me, when this quote was popped out, I'm sitting there saying, okay, I get it. This is how he's wired and this is where he wants to be. It's not about being the star. It's not about being the guy that's lifted up front and everybody's looking at you and you're the point of the pyramid and everybody's sitting there saying, okay, I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to do this. And it's this way. Folks are wired a certain way. And I think that this was a big window into seeing how Josef is wired and what being here means to him as being a part of 11 stars on the field and a team and a club all working toward common goals.
Yeah, I mean, this league gets better when guys make this decision to play here. And this is a big part of that, and this is going to be one of those milestones in MLS history, in my mind. And just like I think it was with Landon Donovan, when he decided to spend the majority of his career here, it's important when top players choose Major League Soccer, and especially when they have other opportunities, not China, not the Middle East, not leagues that MLS is past already. But when they have the opportunity to go to mid-table teams in top leagues, and they say, you know what, I'm going to stay here. Again, it's not for everybody, and this has nothing to do with Miguel Almiron's decisions and what he's thinking. He has not had the experiences that Josef Martinez has had. Josef went to Europe at a very young age. Josef didn't have the opportunity in Venezuela to play for clubs like Cerro Porteño and Lanús in Argentina. He didn't get that opportunity. He had to go to Switzerland and find it and play well, and then get a move to Italy, and then it didn't go so well. Miguel hasn't had that before. Miguel might thrive in that situation. For Josef, I think he's seen enough of it that comfort, that affection, that care that everyone's shown him that he talks about, that's what's important to him at this stage. And that's what he needs right now. So that's what he has chosen to commit his future to. And as we all know, look, this doesn't mean that there's never going to be a transfer offer for Josef Martinez that Atlanta United should take. You can't control that. If he keeps scoring goals at the rate that he scored goals at, you could get a mega club come over, and it could be an amazing opportunity. And the conversation could change at that point. That's the game. But to commit at this stage to a contract through 2023, which very few players have committed to a long-term deal like that at this stage of their career in MLS, it says a lot. It says a lot about who Josef is. It says a lot about who Atlanta United is as well. And I think it says a lot about where Major League Soccer is. And I hope others see that as well, because I don't think this happens a few years ago. I think the league is getting to a point that you got to reconsider what is going to happen every season, because there were a lot of smart people who said, well, it's just a matter of time before Josef leaves. I mean, he's great. Why would he be here? He's great. He's going to go. It was just understood by some people that, oh, yeah, he's going to leave. Like, people were saying outside of Atlanta, and we're all looking at it sideways, like, what? That, oh, he's going to leave this offseason. I mean, what? Wow, how could you consider him he's going to stay? How could you even think that? Because it's a new era for Major League Soccer. This is a big statement for that. So, don't think it's the first. I don't think it's the last time. It might be the first one. You could put it on par with Donovan deciding to play here for the majority of his career, but this is another level to me, and we'll see who makes this commitment next, because I think there will be more down the road. It won't be as far apart as it was for Landon to make those decisions to now Josef doing it. I think you're going to see this happen more and more with players who come to MLS and decide, this is where I want to be. This is a good league. Let's talk to Felipe Cardenas about this. Let's get him on the line. We're going to take a break. Dial Felipe up. We'll see if he is in his car, in a stairwell, hiding in a back office. I don't know. Felipe's a very busy man. We'll see where he is hanging out to make some time for us. But stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill, Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, January 17th. Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic joining us now. How's it going, Felipe?
Going good. How are you guys?
Good. I'm glad we know what day it is. As we were trying to figure out when we were getting Felipe on yesterday, I thought it was Tuesday, I think. I don't even know.
Yeah, well,
I was confused.
I hear you, man. I when you asked me, hey, are you sure you don't want to do this on Thursday? I had to look at my calendar and be like, wait, tomorrow's Thursday, right? It's been crazy. And I think we've heard that from Darren Eales and a lot of the guys that, it's just, the preseason started and it seems like literally a month ago they were lifting the cup. So it goes by pretty fast.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. John had a question he wanted to close out the last segment with before we ran up against the break, and he wanted to ask both of us. So take it away, John.
Yeah, I just want to know that from the both of you, is this I'm not going to say MLS 4.0 moment, but is this an MLS 3.5 moment where we have a star in MLS who just happens to be a Josef Martinez who's opting to stay long term as opposed to taking the successes and heading back over to Europe? Is this more of the progression of MLS toward MLS 4.0?
John, were you sitting next to me while I was writing a piece yesterday and just like hovering over me or something? What is going on?
Stealing your notes, brother.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And it's one that I touch on in a piece that will hopefully, I'm thinking it'll probably post today, later this afternoon for the Athletic Soccer. And definitely it's my take. Yeah, it's my take on Josef Martinez, a big personality, a marquee player for the league, deciding to stay and play in Atlanta for the next 5 years. So it's definitely a big moment for the league. And as you mentioned, like, what is MLS 3.0? I think we can start to define that by everything from the way that the style of play in the league. It's faster, it's more direct, to the way that teams, organize their front office, what their objectives are, short-term and long-term. And obviously the types of players that are coming to the league and when they're coming to the league. So it gets into the selling league narrative. And I asked Darren Eales about that yesterday when he was made available. And he gave some great, perspective and his own POV on that, which will also be in the piece today. So I don't know if it's 3.5 yet. And I don't know what 4.0 looks like. But I think it's definitely a pretty big deal, and it's great for Major League Soccer that a player like Josef Martinez has decided to stay, which I think we all somewhat expected, because he's very transparent. He said he wanted to stay, and he got it done.
So this is an interesting mix of things going on, and it hit me yesterday when the announcement was made, and we had a sense it was coming. I mean, you had it reported the night before. It really reminded me of Landon Donovan, in that you have a player who is a great player and has made the decision to stay in MLS, and some people are going to criticize that. And we saw that a lot in the United States, and especially U.S. men's national team fans who criticized Landon Donovan for not testing himself against the best. Now, Atlanta has a different perspective of Josef Martinez and his decision to stay than people in Venezuela would. And I thought his response yesterday about people saying negative things about him because they have a mediocre mentality was fascinating.
It really was, and that's something else that I'll touch on briefly in the piece today. But I'll get to a little bit of where that came from, with you guys. Like, I asked him the question. I asked him straight up. I said, what does this, what would you like to say, essentially to your haters, the people that might expect or that have maybe doubted you in your past and have doubted your quality. And he jumped on it right away. He those things matter to him because that's the type of player he is. It is a cliche, but he really does play with a chip on his shoulder. He is angry at the world when he's playing because he has been doubted and he has gone through, some tough times in Europe. And so, the Landon Donovan thing is interesting because it's true. It's like he should be playing in England, or he should have taken that opportunity. And he did. But, Josef has been there. He wasn't playing in Serie A. He's played in Europe, the Europa League. It didn't go well for him. And now he's here. So when he mentioned, he said we, first of all. So he put himself as like our people, us, we, in Venezuela, we, and it's almost like he's saying we tend to have a mediocre mentality. Now, as soon as he said that to me in Spanish, I knew where he was going. It's like looking at the cynics in South America. And it's something that I've written about before, with LGP and, when he came to MLS, like what he was hearing from his inner circle, like, why would you go there? He questioned it himself because he has, he still has ambitions to play at the highest level, but there's still a perception that MLS is not good enough for these players in South America. And to Joseph's point, like he still reads about it. He hears it. Listen, let's be frank. Yet, before, when I broke the story, some Spanish outlets were starting to break it as well. And if you just kind of go back and find those on Twitter and read the comments, it was all like, what is he doing? What a joke. MLS this, MLS that. And so it's still there. It's still there, and they deal with it. And so Josef is a guy that he might say he doesn't read social media, but he does. And that's fine. That's not, it's everyone does. I think all players do at some point. But he knows that he still has detractors. He still has haters that despite breaking records and essentially dominating this league, you could probably say the last 2 years, if he hadn't been injured in his first year, it's still not enough for some people back home. And he's okay with that.
So were there any other takeaways without stealing the article and its content that I've apparently already stolen from you? What other takeaways did you get from just the day at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground? Because it's a big day for MLS. It's not just a big day for Atlanta United, not denying that, but it's a big day for MLS at the same time to have a moment like this. What was the vibe up there across the board?
Well, I was there yesterday, and it was a big deal. Like, they were going to announce that they were going to make Josef available to the media, and he was going to talk about his extension, and we're expecting to talk to Brad Guzan and LGP as well, but they kind of shuffled those guys, moved them around, and they brought in Darren. So obviously that was because the deal was signed and it was made public at 10 a.m. That same day. So that was after training. So I didn't really. It was very business as usual for them. I felt like even Josef. He talked to us after training. So I thought he was pretty open and cordial, considering the fact that he had just gone through a pretty strenuous, practice, and I think that they even did like a little bit of weights after training, and then he came and talked to us. But what I did see, which I think is great. Like, again, I'll ask Jarrett. Like, Jarrett can probably clear this up, but when they did B-roll, when Tata was there, like, I think it just depends on what's happening at the time of training. But usually when they were doing B-roll, and it was always like kind of towards the end of practice with Tata, and even I would kind of just like peek around, and there wasn't much to see. I think now yesterday when they invited the media to go get some B-roll, they sent everyone. They're like, everyone come out and you guys can sit at midfield and watch training. And they were back in the 11v11 portion of the practice. And so it was great to see, like, some of the things that I noticed. Frank de Boer was casually switching from English to Spanish. And he did that depending on who he was talking to, but also just in general, he would say something like "muy bien" or "vamos," but he was very comfortable, I think, in that space, as we all expected. And another thing that was interesting is that when they would kind of end a session and they would get together, the first team would kind of huddle, and then the second team would kind of wait for the new session to begin. Orlando Trustful was very vocal. He kind of took over that part of the practice and was very animated about certain aspects of what he saw and what a certain player should do if they're on the ball or if they're not on the ball. And Frank kind of let him do that, and then they would break away and keep playing. So it was interesting to see that dynamic. I think Orlando Trustful will be someone that when the games start and you're watching TV, you're going to see him yelling out instructions to players. And Frank seems a little bit more reserved, but we'll see. And overall fitness looked good. I thought fitness looked pretty good. Sharp. They could be a lot sharper, but they look like a team that is an MLS champion, a good team in this league. They look like a very good team. They look like they've been playing together for a little bit now, so they understand. And someone like Miguel Almiron was out there. He was out there training as hard as he ever would. And let me just tell you, like, he looked really good. He looked like probably the best player in this league every time he was on the ball. And so it's hard to say what they were doing tactically, and I don't think that really matters at this point. But he was letting them play, and they were getting forward quickly, and they were getting back, and they were pressing, and it was interesting to see. I'll end it with saying, which I'm sure everyone wants to know, I thought Anderson Asiedu looked really good as well. And not someone that, he's going to start or he's going to get a lot of meaningful minutes with the first team. But he looked really comfortable. He was playing with the reserves, but he looked very comfortable in the middle. He made some tackles. He would distribute, cleanly and technically, and he just looked confident out there. So good for him.
All right, Thursday thoughts. We tend to go a little bit deeper on these types of shows, and I thought Leandro Gonzalez Perez had a really interesting quote from an article over at Univision from Emmanuel Quispe. And it's translated. It might not be 100% accurate, but I know where he's getting, and then we can also tie Marcelo Bielsa into it because that's what we do here. Johan Cruyff's Dutch school is very similar to FC Barcelona and Tata. Therefore, Frank de Boer is a great candidate for working in an excellent manner. The links, we know Tata didn't create FC Barcelona style. That was Johan Cruyff, and then it became Pep Guardiola. But we know that Marcelo Bielsa has been, always just enamored with Johan Cruyff and the Dutch school, and all the links and all the different threads here. This was a fascinating quote to me, and I think it just goes to that next level of the original concerns about, stylistically it's going to be so different. It's not. They're from the same school.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think there might be some translation there, like you said, that maybe it's not as accurate, but it's probably a few things, like I think the players are also learning about their new manager and understanding where he came from and probably doing their own research, and they probably have been given some research about what the Ajax philosophy is, even though everyone knows about Ajax, but it's probably a good refresher to find out like where their manager comes from. And also some players like LGP, I think is just like a soccer, brain. Like he is entrenched in it. Like I think a lot of the Argentine players are their fans, just like all of us. They understand history and I think for them, Frank de Boer for them is probably still someone that they remember as a player more so than as a manager. And I think that's unique as well. Tata, he's older than Frank de Boer, but in Argentina, young players, old players, everyone knows Tata because of his recent, work with Paraguay at the national team level in Argentina. And he's just a legend, in Argentina and very well known throughout the continent. So Frank de Boer isn't. But it is interesting to see that they're probably trying to understand also, like, are we going to play differently? And, Josef touched on that a little bit yesterday. And there will be nuances. There will be new approaches to how they play. It's not going to be completely different, but there will be differences. And I think that's natural with any manager. And so to go back to Bielsa, I think, there's so much happening around Marcelo. I heard the first part of your show today and about his presentation yesterday, and I thought it was brilliant. I absolutely thought it was brilliant. I thought the Spygate thing was hilarious and fun and just great to see, like, the cultural clash between something that happens probably every day in South America and to something that's just so taboo in England. I think if we get into video analysis and let's quickly go back to Tata. Tata was extremely detail oriented when it came to video sessions. Like I've spoken to players, like they were hours of video sessions. They were very, profound and in depth, and he could queue up video from games from all over the world when at the snap of his fingers. You want to see something that Julian Gressel should have done or did well? Like, let's watch this clip. And he would just have it queued up. And so that means hours and hours and hours of film study. And I mean, if Tata were still in Atlanta, like, it would probably be a matter of time before he sent Justin Veldhuis to spy on someone's practice. So it's like, it's great. That is the underbelly of soccer, of world soccer. And it's great that some people are getting to see it firsthand because, come on, it's fun.
Let's 1 second. Let's take it just a little bit here. I think the tactics that will be different with De Boer versus Tata, definitely. I mean, we see managers from the same school approach the game differently. I mean, Tata Martino was mentored by Marcelo Bielsa, but he approached the game differently, far more pragmatic than Bielsa's been. And then you take it to an extreme of Diego Simeone, who talks about how much he's been influenced by Bielsa and looks at him like a father figure. But you would watch those two teams play, and I mean, even Bielsa's like, this is no good. Nobody wants to watch this. So I think philosophy will be very similar. I think individual tactics, there will be some pretty big differences with Tata and Frank.
I totally agree. I think I heard you on maybe it's 92.9 or 92.9. Yeah, 92.9 the game. Somewhere where you're talking about maybe like the different, how the team might press a little bit differently under Frank de Boer. And that is a nuance right there. It really reminds me of the way, Colombia began to press under Jose Pekerman. They didn't press at all ever, but then he kind of instituted this midfield press that worked for them because he always had two really good central midfielders that could tackle, distribute quickly, and he kind of instituted wing play in Colombia's system, which was pretty non-existent for decades. And so when you have guys like James and Cuadrado and other just young players that are accustomed to playing direct, that sort of thing works. And so I think someone like Frank de Boer will probably see that. Like he knows, like, I have the pieces here. I have players that can do what I ask them to do, even if it's a little bit different. Now, I think Jason, you mentioned it. I wrote about it. I think the midfield will have a lot more to do under Frank de Boer. I just think that's, and sometimes it might be very obvious to the naked eye, and other times it won't. But you're going to see that. You're going to see a concerted effort for the central midfielders and a number 10 maybe that's playing in a roaming number 10 role to really get back to contribute, to press very specifically at the right moment. And it's not going to be the full on 2017 Atlanta United high press. Maybe it will for against a certain opponent, but I think as years go by and the matches go by, you'll start to see the way that Frank de Boer is influencing this team.
One more question, John, before we wrap up.
Go for it.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say, from Bielsa and his masterclass yesterday, it was a great window into who he is. And there were two paragraphs or two quotes that stuck with me. Felipe says, "All the information I need to clarify, I gather it without watching the training session of the opponent. So why did I send someone to watch them? Just because I thought I wasn't violating the norm. I gathered information that I can obtain in another way. We feel guilty if we don't work enough. It allows us to have less anxiety, and in my case, I am stupid enough to allow this kind of behavior." I just thought it was a great window into who Bielsa is and what all these different layers that it takes for him to be the success that he is.
Yeah, it is a great quote, and I saw some of that on Twitter and some interesting feedback to like that is the definition of intelligence. Calling yourself stupid when we all know that he's a brain, he's a soccer brain. But for him, it's never enough. Like, he can always learn, he can always gather more information, he can always be a little bit better prepared, for the opponent. And I'm just going to be blunt. Like, I also think he completely, just got in Lampard's head. I think that was part of it. Yes. And he, Lampard is a first year coach. And excuse me, but no one is going to come and try to outcoach Marcelo Bielsa. They get to that level. Let's not forget, it's not petty, it's competitiveness, and it's a mind game. And I think he really got inside his head by almost like, and then showing the world, like, look, this is what I do for everyone that we play against. I'm always prepared. I think I can be more prepared. And it might be a little bit the audacity of like asking the media to come and then do a presentation, whatever. It's also theater, and it's going to be talked about. And I think Frank Lampard, and I heard you, Jason, saying, and I agree. Like, he it's not a good look to look, to, what he's putting out there to kind of look defensive and defeated, because not only did they lose, but he's losing in the headlines as well. And so that's something that he's going to learn from. I guarantee when Frank Lampard is Bielsa's age, he might do the same thing. But I've told you guys on the show before, like, I have gone down some really strange Bielsa YouTube video rabbit holes. and I always come out thinking, like, I feel smarter, or I feel like I learned something. And one really quick is, like, I saw one where he described the types of soccer fields that kids play on in South America, and the fact that they're just tore up right down the middle. There's not even grass. It's just dirt. And that's because that's how we play. And then you look at the flanks on that same field, and there's just pristine grass everywhere. And so he went into this way of, like, why we play wide and what happens when we get too narrow. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like, that's brilliant. Like, I remember playing on fields like that all the time. And that because everyone wanted to be in the middle. Everyone wanted to attack down the middle. That's where you score. And so that's the tactical mind of someone like Bielsa.
Yeah, I think we could do like a weekly show about the mind of Bielsa, and it would be a lot of fun, and we would all probably go insane.
Bielsa over there.
Yes, yeah. We would all be El Loco as well. Felipe, be on the lookout for his piece over at The Athletic, hopefully today, on Josef Martinez. Thanks as always, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Take care.
We're going to take our final break of hour number 1. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Quick final segment as we wrap up hour number 1. It's the Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. So in hour number 2, we're going to be talking about a lot of your thoughts. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here if you've got thoughts on Bielsa, if you've got thoughts on Josef, if you've got thoughts on Frank DeBoer, Atlanta United's training. All of that's fair game. Something real quick. The Yamil Assad saga in D.C. just keeps taking crazy, crazy turns. Pablo Maurer tweeted earlier this week, and he writes for The Athletic as well, that Yamil was irritated by the speed of the process and the money being offered. Stephen Goff in the Washington Post basically wrote an article that was saying that wasn't true and said that the issues are on the Velez side. Ben Olsen was quoted as agreeing that Velez Sarsfield is being difficult. An unnamed source said Velez is not budging. From the article, it said that United's even tried to get the help of MLS headquarters in New York to get this done. And then a follow-up piece in The Athletic from Maurer said that the likelihood of this deal getting done at this stage is 50-50. We've heard a lot of this before. This is nothing new. I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know if it's Yamil and his representation. I don't know if it's Velez Sarsfield. I don't know if it's DC United. I don't know, but it's an interesting look that now you're getting two different reporters in the Washington area going back and forth and saying opposite things about the whole process. We'll see how it shakes down. More on that in hour number 2 after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, January 17th. It's a Thursday. I didn't know it was going to be Thursday until Felipe said, dude, what's wrong with you? We're talking on Thursday. That's tomorrow. This week's been crazy. I don't know if it's been that way for you guys, but I think Monday being the start of preseason and being at the facility all day has completely thrown my week off. I've been like a day or two off all week. It's been very strange. But it's Thursday. It's Thursday Thoughts.
Literally,
and we found Jarrett Smith.
Literally, the best description of the week I've heard was I walked into training yesterday when Atlanta dropped 2 press releases in the matter of, an hour? With Franco and then
during
Joseph.
Our show, yeah.
And I saw Chris Winkler, who is the wonderful saint who deals with all of us sociopaths in the media. And I asked him, like, so a pretty busy morning for you, I guess. And he just hung his head. He's like, it feels like it should be Friday, and it's only Wednesday. He's like, I don't know what the next 2 days are going to be like.
Yeah, it's like that. Let's get into a couple of the Twitter thoughts from the peeps out there before we go through some of the news and rumors around the league, of which there are quite a few, and there probably will be more before we finish up. Joe Bost asks, will Gressel take over from Escobar in the interim with the injury to Franco? I think he does. I think he's the obvious one because I think Atlanta stays in the 3-5-2 early on. I think it's comfortable, and I think it works for Frank de Boer and what he wants to do, and you saw the success. And in CONCACAF Champions League, you're trying to limit risk. It worked really well in the postseason. I could easily see a scenario where you go to Herediano, and it is Julian Gressel as a right wing back. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think the other option would be if you go to 4 in the back and it's Gressel as a right back. I don't think you're going to see John Gallagher in CONCACAF Champions League, but you might see him in MLS play to start the season. What do you think, Jarrett?
I have no idea about how this is going to I don't know how this is going to look.
Not a lot of other options on the right side right now.
I know, but it feels like Gressel. I want to see how. I guess I want to see how it all looks in the grand scheme of things. With once we get done with training and once we get an idea of what Frank de Boer sees with it. So I expect Gressel there, but I still have questions about what the whole makeup of your standard 18 is going to look like, because it might be different than what Tata saw. But yeah, Gressel feels like that answer on the right. Or like talked about yesterday, maybe there's a chance that they go in the league and look for somebody who can kind of help bridge that gap, because for all we know, Frank de Boer might look at Gressel and think, yeah, I like him more in the middle.
He could, and yeah, this is my speculation saying Gressel on the right side right now is barring a move for somebody else to come in and play on the right. I think out of what's in house, he would be the guy right now, and I think you'd probably stick with that 3-5-2, but it's very, very early days, so we'll have to wait and see. Waffle House United with one, and John, want to get your take here. Waffle House United asks, with all the changes, injuries, including Dembele going to the Chinese Super League and Eriksen possibly to Real Madrid in the summer, would Tottenham be a possible suitor for Miguel Almiron?
Well, I mean, you could sit there and take the strings on the wall between photos and go from a Tata photo to a Pochettino photo and take the string around the push pins and have that as an option. Sure. I know a lot of folks are looking at Arsenal. I'm not. For me, I just I see too many guys ahead of him. Okay. I know that Unai Emery is still trying to figure out what it's going to look like, but right now in its current form, I think there are too many guys that would be there, and Miguel would not be getting the playing time to make the impact that I know that he wants to make, and that all of us who are following Miguel wants to make. Right now, I'm looking at West Ham as my number one, and being the negative guy on this show, that's why I'm looking at them as number one over Newcastle. I just don't think Newcastle's going to pull the trigger for one reason or another, and it's going to be ugly for the rest of this season, and Rafa Benitez is going to go. So I would say for me, West Ham with an interest from Tottenham, if all those pieces are going to fall through, and Newcastle on the outside looking in.
Yeah, there's a great piece from the Newcastle SB Nation blog. Dirty South Soccer shared it, just breaking down the ridiculous game of chicken that Newcastle United is playing right now, gambling on their potential long-term future with this whole scenario of not adding anybody and sliding down the table. It's a big risk. We'll see if anything changes. We'll see how this weekend goes, because this weekend could push you one way or the other. It could push you to decide to stay the course if you get a win, or if you lose, could push you to some serious desperation, and we'll see what happens. Adam Mulligan chimes in late to the discussion from a few days ago, but considering our calendar, need to see more consistency from Romario Williams this year. Tough adjusting the sub minutes last year, but needed here less Frank de Boer run some other guys out. Jarrett, what do you think about Romario and what is needed from him in 2019?
Well, first off, he's got to win the second striker spot, because I wouldn't blame anyone if they forgot this. Brandon Vasquez is still on the roster. Brandon Vasquez also scored a really nice goal the other day in training. So that battle's still probably going to be a thing. And, I think first things first, Romario's got to win that battle to kind of be behind Josef. And nothing is guaranteed right now. But if it's him, you need him to come in and, take advantage of the opportunities he does get, like he did early in the season last year. You go back and you remember the demolition of LAFC where he scores, but even before that, up until that LAFC game, every time Romario came on the field, it looked better and better and more confident. And then at some point, it didn't click. Just can't have that this year. You've got to have him be that guy who comes on and is a threat late in the game. And it's not fair to compare it straight away to what Tito was, but what Tito was late in the season when Tito's coming off the bench as a striker or as an attacking threat, and damn near picks up a hat trick against Red Bulls in the playoffs in like 10 minutes time. You don't need to pick up a hat trick in 10 minutes every time, but you need to be scary, and I need more consistency from him. But again, first he's got to break into the depth chart.
Yeah, last season at the MLS level, no starts, 17 appearances, 211 minutes, scored 1 goal against LAFC. I think he's got to get more minutes than that this year with the compressed schedule. That's for sure. I don't know how much, and that's going to be a tough one for him. And I think it's a tough one for any other striker in this team, Brandon Vasquez, everybody else included, because Josef is the guy, and Josef is a guy who likes to play a lot. He's not going to – I don't think you're going to see Josef asking for much time off. That's just not his MO. I think he's going to have to be given some, especially early on with CONCACAF Champions League going on. Romario at the USL level last year, 4 goals and 7 appearances. We saw some really dominant performances, and we saw some where there wasn't much. I think the consistency is the number one thing for him at whichever level he's playing and wherever he's getting those minutes. You have to know that if you have to turn to him, you have to know what you're going to get. And I don't think that was ever understood maybe from about halfway through last year on, because as Jarrett said, it got kind of inconsistent there in the second half. And it was even in the USL minutes we saw, John, where there were some games that we expected to see a big performance from Williams, and it just didn't really happen.
Yeah. And for me, the one thing I'm looking for first and foremost is consistency. And that to me is my number one circle, check mark, red flag, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking for more consistency across levels, where you take what you learned from the practice pitch and can apply it more regularly to what we saw. When he was on, and it was very good. When there were times that you thought that something needed to be there and it wasn't, it was concerning. And so for me, where Romario's concerned, I'm looking for consistency so he can earn those minutes or wherever, on whichever level. But no, for me, it's consistency with Romario.
I'm going to throw two questions together, and I'm going to beg that we move on from this type of stuff soon. Percy Herrera asked, and I love the king and angry face emoji combined for Josef. That's pretty good. With Josef's new contract, would it be possible to pay him under $500,000 with the rest of his salary and bonuses to avoid DP designation? No, it's not. The bonuses, I think they have to count like bonuses that are likely as part of the salary, as part of the cap hit. You're not going to be able to pull that one off, because the MLS office would see the contract and say, yeah, no, that's not going to work. So can't do that. And then Josh Eisenberg asked, and I do appreciate the hashtag down the rabbit hole, said, hey, Longshoe, yes, there were some Twitter strategists discussing roster rules for the first round of CONCACAF Champions League. For S&Gs, if we signed Pity but still have Miggy and Barco, can all 4 designated players play in February? One, I don't think you're going to be allowed to do that by Major League Soccer, so hold on to that. But the more important thing here is the transfer windows are not going to align to allow you to do that, because you can go through all of the roster permutations and rules and bending things and trying to move money here and trying to hide this here. The fact is, the Argentine transfer window coming in closes February 20th. Atlanta plays Herediano February 21st. Unless you're going to loan him to a Brazilian club and have a deal to do it before their window closes in early April, which means you still might not have Barco for the whole of CONCACAF Champions League, there is no way that Ezequiel Barco or his representation or Atlanta United would do this to a player and have them basically not be able to be rostered in MLS to try to get some CONCACAF Champions League games out of them. I know everybody's trying to find a way to do that, but you have to think about the big picture here. Just like when it comes up about a player being injured, let's go for Escobar right now. And I haven't heard this yet, but it'll come up. Let's go get a starting right back. You're not going to pull that off, because when Escobar's back, that starting right back that you went to go acquire then has to accept being a substitute. Nobody's going to do that, because you have to think about the player side too. Just like Tottenham, there's speculation about Spurs going to try to find a striker right now, a starting level striker, a top striker. Well, who's going to take that when they know Harry Kane's coming back? Why would you go there? You're not. So when you're thinking about possibilities and ways to do it, you have to consider that part, or you're just going to keep going down the rabbit hole and driving yourself crazy. I think what it comes down to from a timeline perspective is the transfer window in Europe closes January 31st. If Miguel Almiron is not sold by then, phase 2 is finding a club in Argentina or Brazil for Ezequiel Barco to go out on loan to. And I think it's one or the other, and that's it. I don't think there's any other scenario here. You're not going to be able to rework a contract so somebody's not a designated player. You're not going to be able to buy anything down. You're not going to be able to do any of that. So it's honestly pretty cut and dried at this point. It is Miguel Almiron gets sold because that's what everybody is working towards for the good of everybody concerned, Or if that doesn't happen this window, and I am fully on board with Atlanta United setting their price and demanding full value and not accepting bad offers, 100% on board with that. And it seems like Miguel and his agents are as well. If you can't get the deal that you're looking for, then you have to find plan B. And plan B would be Argentina or Brazil for a loan for Ezequiel Barco, because those windows are still open after the European window is. I mean, I guess a couple days after the main European window, by February 2nd, if you wanted to find a club in Portugal to loan to, you could, which wouldn't be a horrible idea if he's going to play at a Benfica or Sporting Lisbon. Be a great situation. But you also have to think about your investment in Ezequiel Barco. So you're not going to waste that because of trying to get a couple of games out of CONCACAF Champions League. You want him to play, and you want him to continue to develop. And if he has to do that somewhere else for 6 months while you're working on Miguel Almiron, and obviously, again, this is all supposing that Pity Martinez is announced here shortly, you're going to do that because you have to think about Ezequiel Barco's long-term development. You have to think about Miguel Almiron's long-term value. You have to think about everything that's good for the team and the club as a whole, not just a couple of games. So that's the rabbit hole, Josh and Percy and everybody else. Like, don't drive yourself crazy trying to find loopholes, because they're not there. If they're there and we don't know about it, great, then we'll learn something. But by all accounts, publicly, privately, from all the experts who know the rules inside and out, there's no loopholes you're going to find here to be able to have 4 designated players to play in CONCACAF Champions League or league play. It's pretty cut and dried at this stage. It's Miguel Almiron going in a transfer, or it's Ezequiel Barco going out on loan, and it's one or the other, and that's where you're at. So we'll see how it goes down, but don't drive yourself crazy, please. We need you.
Yes. No. Yeah, we need you for the duration. Don't go banging your head against a wall or anything.
Yeah, it's honestly just pretty simple at this point. It's one or the other. That's where you're at right now, and you have time, and that's what's great about these windows, because you have time to go all in on Plan A. Okay, doesn't work. Okay, now it's Plan B. Do it. You've got time to work it out, and the loan, if you have to go down that road, is a lot easier to sort out than a transfer. So you can wait a little bit on that. I'm sure there's probably a short list of possibilities there, but the timelines work out. I just keep banging my head against the wall when I read articles from either national media or English media about, well, Atlanta has no leverage. Yeah, the leverage is he doesn't go and he stays in an Atlanta United kit, and then you loan your youngest designated player somewhere else to play for a few months. That's your leverage. It's not that difficult. It's really not. So keep saying there's no leverage, and then you're not going to get the player that you're trying to get. I would assume that the clubs are not thinking this. So anyway, we're going to take a break. More Thursday Thoughts after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, January 17th edition. Got a little bit of an air horn to hit. Update from U.S. men's national team camp. Defender Greg Garza has been ruled out of camp with a quadriceps injury. Roster will stay at 27 players. Just awful luck for Garza catching. This is a new injury that I don't remember him having a quad injury. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a shame because he had played his way back into this consideration. New manager, great opportunity, and now he's out of camp. And I think it's going to make anything going forward with friendlies or Gold Cup this summer a real long shot for Greg Garza. And that's a shame.
It keeps feels like the Greg Garza kind of feels like the Wile E. Coyote right now. Like every time he gets close, the Acme rocket blows up or the painting on the wall turns into an actual painting. It doesn't seem to ever hit right. Yeah, the timing always seems to get wrong, but I hate it for Greg. I mean, we'd love to have him in Atlanta. And you hope it's just kind of a minor thing and he'll make another camp, especially with Berhalter here, that he'll get a chance to, in a similar vein to what the Atlanta players are going through, where he can prove to a new manager that he can fit.
Yeah, we'll see. It's tough because when a new guy's trying to build that roster up, when you get ruled out early on, other guys have a lot of chances to pass you. And I think Greg was already kind of fighting his way back in. So he's going to have to go to Cincinnati and play well. And if you're FC Cincinnati right now, I think you have to be considering what your depth is at left back. And probably should have been considering that anyway. But you have to be considering that now in a big way. And see if you're settled or not, or if you need to go out into the market and find something. All right, John, you want a hot take for the day?
Hot take.
Tofka TLC. We've all been prepared for the Miggy transfer for a while, but this summer, Tito will go to Europe too for approximately $12 million. That's, I guess, Kreskin Tofka trying to find something here. What do you think?
Nope.
Nope. Why?
And call me silly for thinking about it this way, but I think that what Josef said in his press conference yesterday is going to reverberate through the camp and reverberate through the roster. I think that if Josef is going to make the kind of statements that he's going to make about this being his Barca or Real Madrid and this is home, and you have other players of that same mindset and want to be a part of the team and the club and everyone moving forward, I think that Tito, my gut is that Tito stays as well.
It's possible. I mean, it definitely is. Josef making this commitment is kind of, planting that flag, and others will likely follow that. But, Jared, I mean, we've talked about it. Tito Villalba is a guy who would be a starter in maybe every other team in Major League Soccer, if not the overwhelming majority. It wouldn't surprise me if he drew interest, and he's never played in Europe, so that's definitely something that could be a draw for him. I think $12 million is wildly optimistic because he hasn't been a consistent starter here, but could you see him getting interest and going overseas?
Absolutely. I'd hate for it because Tito is a fan favorite here, and Tito's been very good. You talked about it. I mean, he'd be a starter on a lot of teams. I think he'd be a star on a lot of teams in this league. And really, honestly, in CONCACAF as a whole, I think he could go to Mexico and in the right situation and be a big name. So, I mean, it's possible, and it would stink, but just because if for no other reason, right now you're paying him TAM because you've bought him down out of designated player, but he performs when he's on the field like a designated player. So it's nice to have that value and to have that guy who right now, I guess you're looking at somebody who comes off the bench and provides that attacking spark for you, or he starts. We'll see how all that shakes out. We've been at training this week and watching him, and it's always a nice reminder that Tito Villalba is way faster than you ever remember him being, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The thing I'll agree with Tafka on this, I think the price tag's a little high. I think, yeah, he could get interest and could go for sure. And the reason why I think there is a magic number for Tito, I think there's probably a magic number for everybody, but there's a magic number for Tito because, as Tafka points out, you have depth here. You know, if you bring in Pity Martinez, you have Barco, you have Carlton, you have Kunga, you have Dion Pereira now. We'll see what he can bring to the table. You have Breck Shea, you have Julian Gressel, you have Brandon Vasquez, you have Gordon Wild, you have Laurent Kessiadou, John Gallagher, if he's not playing right back. You have wing options for days. So you're going to have potential here, and that's not even getting into other academy players on the rise that would be slotting in here eventually too. So there's a magic number. I don't know if you'll get to 12. I think if you had a $12 million offer, it'd be really hard to say no to. But that's where Atlanta United's going to be going forward, is especially after the Miguel Almiron transfer. You're going to be front of mind, and people are going to look at what you have and say, you know what, we wouldn't mind getting him. What's the price tag? Oh, okay, let's talk. Oh, that sounds like that's a good price tag. Let's go. That's going to happen. So get ready. There's going to be more interest. Doesn't mean players are getting sold just because there's interest, but I think the interest level will definitely pick up, and you'll start to see some of the chatter actually turn into real offers here at some point. Let's see. What else do we have on the timeline that we need to get? We've had a lot of questions about Tottenham and Almiron, and could that be a possibility? I'm not super up on Spurs and where they are right now. John, we talked about it a second ago, but would he fill a need for them at the moment? I mean, I don't think he does right now.
No, and with Son over at the Asian Cup, he's coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know where the playing time comes from. I really don't.
And I don't know where the money would come from on this one either, because he wouldn't be that huge need at the moment. You know, if you caught a bargain basement deal, sure, because you'd bring in a talented player, but it doesn't seem to fit. Now, in the summer, if Miguel gets to the summer window, maybe it's a different conversation. But right now, I don't think it is, because right now this window is all about that desperation, and Tottenham doesn't have that right now.
Yeah. And, you're looking at, and I'm looking at their midfielders, and you've got Winks, Lamela, Wanyama, Kudu, Dyer, Sissoko, Ali, Eriksson, Lucas Moura. Okay. That's a lot in the midfield. And I don't see the playing time. And Tottenham, I think, also isn't going to be putting a lot of money into players in this transfer window. If I remember correctly, something at the beginning of the window where Pochettino said that they weren't going to be investing a whole lot financially in the window. So that, so for me, it's a couple of different things that add up to them maybe kind of keeping an eye, but they're not going to sit there and throw the $30 million at Miguel Almiron right now.
No, summer's a different conversation, but right now I just don't see it. John hinted at this, Jarrett, but let me get your thoughts on Jim Lepp's question. Joseph's commitment, what does that say to his teammates, and how do you think that will be received among not even just like La Banda, but the group as a whole when your star striker commits to a 5-year deal with the club?
I think it means that if you do your job, you'll be taken care of, which seems simple, but that's not always the case around the world. That's not always the case in every sport. That if you do what you're supposed to do, you'll be taken care of. But that's what it is to me, is you got a guy who means that much to the city and to the team, like Darren Eales talked about yesterday, that they're going to make sure that if you want to stay here, well, we can make that happen. And I think it takes a little bit from both sides. So, let's go to Tito Villalba. If you get an offer for Tito and you talk to him and say, here's what they're offering you, do you want to stay? Or, what is your interest in going to Europe? Because if you'd like to stay here, I think they'd be happy to offer a long-term deal to Tito to keep him here. But I think it also depends on what he wants to do. But I think this opens the door and makes it obvious that you've got a chance to stay here, no problem at all, if you want to. And not only that, to get paid what you think you're worth.
And I think that's a big part of it. So I think it's a motivator for the squad. I really do. I think it's just another statement that this club is operating in a big league kind of way. And like Jarrett said, if you perform, you're going to get rewarded. If you followed Arthur Blank's history owning the Falcons, you would know that. It's how he operates. And he's made a commitment to Josef now for a long time and probably a lot of money. Josef's earned that deal. So now we'll see if other guys earn deals, because you're going to have a lot of guys who are going to be looking for those next deals. Team started in 2017. A lot of guys came in at the same time. You're going to have a lot of deals come up, and that's going to be a challenge to figure out, okay, who can get a raise here? How can this fit here? How does this work here? That will be a challenge going forward. And this year, I think, is a big one for a lot of players in terms of that next deal for them. Josh Eisenberg said regarding second striker, don't forget we have Brek Shea now too. I don't want to see that. I think Vancouver did it because they didn't have a lot of ideas, honestly. That's exactly how I felt when I saw him up there. He's not a striker. He's not he's not a solo striker. He's not a number 9. In the right system with the right combination, he could play as a second striker off of somebody, but you lose so much effectiveness of Brek Shea if he's not playing out wide. It's pointless to play him centrally. The only reason Vancouver did it is because he's 6'4". That's it. And late in a game where you're having to play direct and just launch long ball after long ball and look for a knockdown, okay, maybe he slides up there. But as a true second striker, no, Brek Shea is not that. He's a winger or a left back. He's a wide player because he's just not as effective centrally. You lose a lot of that with him. It honestly kind of reminds me of Kenny Cooper in some ways. Kenny Cooper, you looked at his body type, and he looked more like a prototypical number 9 than Brek does. But Kenny Cooper, you had so many teams try to play him as a number 9. He wasn't. The way he played, he was a winger. He played like a winger. He was effective out wide. He was not as effective as a 9. Brek, I think, is even more of that wide player. He's just a last resort up top late in a game where you have to play direct. That's it, I think, for him as a striker. I think Vancouver turned to that far too often because they didn't have any other ideas. We'll see if Marc Dos Santos has ideas. I hope he does. I hope Vancouver can be more of an interesting team. I just felt like they never maximized the potential they had with the talent they had. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's run through the news and rumors around the league because there's a lot of stuff about some key players in this league. We're going to catch you up on everything silly season in MLS as most teams are getting ready to start camp next week. The CONCACAF Champions League teams are training this week. We'll get you caught up after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath.
He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties.
He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, January 17th, Thursday Thoughts. Last call for Thursday Thoughts. We'll get to those in the final segment. But let's run through the news and rumor and innuendo and all the silly season madness around MLS as everybody will be in camp next week. Toronto had a bombshell. Victor Vasquez is going to be sold to a club in Qatar. Don't know which one. He has to pass a medical test, though, and that's not a guarantee because he's coming off of surgery. We talked about the Sebastian Giovinco media scrum where he said he had significant interest from another club, and then the club said, well, no, we haven't received an offer. You've got Richie Larea in camp now with Toronto after he was let go by Orlando. I feel like Toronto should be a contender in the Eastern Conference, but this is a whole bunch of stuff to deal with. Giovinco doesn't seem happy, and you lose Vasquez. That will have a huge impact on Toronto, Jarrett. I don't know how I feel about Toronto at the moment.
Yeah, I got mad. I brought it up at training yesterday, and everybody was there was kind of like, so? I'm like, no, that's a big deal. Why are we not like talking more about Victor Vasquez leaving Toronto?
Victor Vasquez is an amazing player.
And I was like, okay. Like, what do you mean, okay? Y'all don't remember what he did? Y'all remember how good he is? I know he's getting hurt a lot.
Spans. Yeah, there's
man, killing me, y'all.
He made Toronto. He's the one who changed them from being a really good team to a treble-winning team. It was Victor Vasquez.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, there's that.
So. Unless he doesn't pass the medical.
I'm assuming,
and then you might have bigger problems.
If he passes the medical, though, I'm assuming he's going to Qatar. I'm assuming it's for a nice little chunk of change. And if that's the case, go get paid, man.
I think he's getting that chunk of change, yeah. And from what some media have said, this was something that he came to the club with, and he wanted to go on a free, and the club was like, not so fast, Victor. We're going to get paid on this, and they're going to make a little bit of money. Not a ton, but they're going to make some money on it, too. And then they can use that general allocation money that they get from it. And that's a nice chunk. So we'll see what happens with Toronto, but there's more questions than I think originally once training camp started for them. LA Galaxy made a couple of signings, re-signings. Rolf Feltscher, defender, who can play in the middle and on the right side. Central midfielder, Servando Carrasco as well. Depth pieces. We'll see where the Galaxy could end up going. LAFC brought their central defenders back. And Danilo Silva and Dejan Jakovic, not a huge surprise, but Walker Zimmerman getting re-signed through 2022. There was a little bit of question on if Zimmerman would leave. John, what do you think about LAFC and that trio of center backs? Is that going to be enough for them to be a top team in the West?
Define top, sir.
Kansas City is my top. Portland has to be in there as well because they were in MLS Cup. Those are the two that I keep looking at out west. Is LAFC right there?
kind of by default. You look at 3 through 7, and you're kind of going, okay, I've got Sporting, I've got Portland. I think Seattle's going to drop off. You know that Dallas is going through what they're going through, so I don't consider them a part of it.
Dallas
RSL
is a mystery to me.
Yes, the game commences. Dallas, they could be really bad, but I think that they're going to get better as the season goes along. I think that they're going to be the colt trying to get its balance, being the newborn coming out of the block. So I think.
Okay, let me ask you Dallas specifically then. Is it going to be LAFC or Real Salt Lake that finishes higher in the table?
LAFC, I think, by default.
Jared,
I think that more goals scored, more talent. Yeah.
LAFC or RSL, Jarrett? Which one's going to be higher in the table?
Depends. Does Carlos Vela news come to roost?
Yes, there's that. There's rumors of Carlos Vela to Barcelona as cover for Luis Suarez. They need a reinforcement up top. Alvaro Morata has also been linked to Barcelona. This is a very interesting one because, of course, you immediately get the people saying, "Oh, he's in MLS. He can blah blah blah." No, okay, stop. He's not going there to be a starter if he goes there. It's cover. It's a backup. It's a role for support. Now, this is an interesting situation for a guy like Vela. Seems to be happy in Los Angeles. Made a big signing there, getting paid very handsomely. But this is Barcelona that comes calling.
Yes.
And yes, he would be going for a backup role. But we all know that one injury and you get your opportunity and boom. And this is not a guy who has not played in La Liga before. This is Carlos Vela, who played in La Liga for quite a while. Never got the opportunity to move up to a top club. This is it. That's a fascinating rumor right now. It's a very unique situation. I don't know. I don't know how this one plays out. If Carlos Vela leaves LAFC, then you've got some serious problems if you're Bob Bradley.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have to find somebody
hinges
quickly.
On to me.
Yeah, it does too, obviously. I think if he's there...
it's them over RSL right now, although I do like RSL, but I need RSL too. RSL for the last 2 years, I feel like has been like, man, they're gonna put it together and there will be a problem. And you kind of saw it in the playoffs last year. You saw the crane kick, and you saw them play hard in the playoffs, and it just wasn't enough.
Got to be better away from Rio Tinto.
But there's that. It's got to be more consistent.
They've got to cross that bridge from, man, they're going to figure it out to they figured it out until they've gotten to unless if they don't get there, you can't always be in that stage of they're about to be ready to break out. Well, when you're always in that stage, guess what? Eventually, time passes you.
Welcome to Georgia football, ladies and gentlemen.
God, I didn't want to go that bleak.
That is RSL. Yeah. Don't be that. So we'll see. Portland made an interesting move, and I'm looking at it sideways because I was not very impressed with this player previously. Claude Dielna is going from New England to Portland for $100,000 in GAM. I mean, you're not spending much, but by all accounts, you're looking at Dielna to replace Liam Ridgewell. I did not see anything out of Dielna in New England to think that he would be that guy. This is a very bold move from Giovanni Savarese if you're expecting him to be a starter straight away. I don't know. I don't know what he's seen because I don't think Dielna's played well with New England, and I don't even think he was getting on the field at the end of the season.
I looked at this and I'm like, okay, this makes very little sense. I had the question mark bubbles over my head when this one went down. Obviously, Savarese sees something in Dielna that the rest of us don't. And so, all right, so let's see if you're right.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you had to get somebody to replace Ridgewell. I just wonder if you maybe could have found something else. Red Bulls are looking for something else to replace Tyler Adams. And this was an interesting nugget from Christian Dyer. He said that he talked to Chris Armas at training and asked about replacing Tyler Adams. Chris Armas said, "We have a few things that are close that will make us feel good about where we're heading there," and implied that the moves were not from within MLS. You're not talking a trade. He did also mention Sean Davis, Christian Caceres as possibilities there. Caceres was the one that most people were thinking to slot in and play next to Davis. But if you're looking at bringing in somebody from outside the league to replace Tyler Adams, my concerns about the Red Bulls maintaining their level, obviously you want to see who it is and how they fit, but I would feel better about it if I'm a Red Bulls fan if they go get a good replacement for Tyler Adams, because we saw the game in September, Jarrett, where Adams couldn't play. You had a replacement for that match. I believe it was Mark Szatkowski, and didn't look like you lost anything. But over a 34-game season and CONCACAF and everything else, you have to have a suitable replacement for Tyler Adams, or you're not winning Supporters Shield like you did last year.
No, you got to figure out something. You got to have that long-term replacement. You can plug in, play that one game, but I mean, this is a long season. MLS is mean and it's grueling, and it doesn't much care for your feelings. So you've got to have the right guys in. I've been wondering how they would go about doing this, because they've got a lot of holes to fill. And I've kind of had questions of how, like, at what point does the New York Red Bulls think, okay, we're finally going to get up, stretch out, take some vitamins and, start adding to this team instead of subtracting from it.
We'll see. Let's talk New England real quick. So we mentioned the Dielna move. New England is linked to a couple of players to keep an eye on. Deportivo La Coruña's Carlos Gil, 26 years old. Revs have reportedly offered $1.7 million for him. Deportivo La Coruña is in the second division right now. He's played a good bit for them. See if they can pull that one off. The other player they've been linked to is left winger Paul Jose Mpoku. He is a 26-year-old left winger from the DR Congo. He's got 6 goals for his national team. He's been with Standard Liège for a while, but he's just bounced around on loans. He spent some time at Spurs. He spent some time in Italy. He's been all over the place. New England has been linked to a $4 million offer for him and then a $6 million offer for him that have both been turned down. And reporters from New England who follow the Revs were not surprised by those numbers, John. I mean, everybody has always talked about Kraft and his lack of investment in MLS, but he's putting, I think, $35 million down on a training facility that they've already started on. I think Academy is starting to be beefed up now with Brad Friedel overseeing some of that. They're looking to finally come into MLS 3.0. The Revs might be somebody to keep an eye on.
Well, I mean, how much chirping into Robert Kraft's ear you think has been done by Arthur Blank? And how much do you think he has seen about what's been going on in Atlanta with a fellow NFL owner whom, by all accounts, you have a great relationship with? And it would be, I mean, for Bob Kraft not to look at Atlanta United through the NFL prism and think that it could be him that could be having the same kind of success if he was to invest the way that Arthur Blank has, that's not good business to me. So I'm hoping that Kraft has been looking at Atlanta United and NFL investment in MLS and seeing the level of success that can happen if you do it however you wish to do it. And I'm hoping that the Revs are turning this corner, because you get kind of tired of really tight camera shots when you're watching games on TV and seeing a lot of empty seats, and it doesn't matter how tight the shot is. And I think that for the longest time, the Revs have done a disservice to soccer fans in the Northeast by just kind of being there. And you can bring up the whole football lines thing too, is just as a microcosm of the whole thing. So I'm hoping that he's looking at fellow owners and sitting there and saying, okay, this could be me. And you're seeing this kind of investment, and you hope that the Revs are turning some kind of a corner.
It's twofold, though, and one last question before we go to our break, Jarrett. Going to sign, Carlos Gil and Paul Jose Mpoku, what should help the team on the field. I mean, by all accounts, these are good players that are going to, raise the level of what you have. Add to Christian Penilla. You've got some pieces to work with here, but is that going to actually change how many people show up to Gillette Stadium? And that's the bigger question for me is these are good things on the field, and this is a good investment. But when and how does it translate to more butts in the seats in New England?
I mean, you put a winning product on the field, people show up. It's usually that simple. Not always, though, especially in New England. New England might just have to play the long game with this. I mean, you might be talking about a team where you're looking at a stadium, looking at a new training facility. You're looking at these improvements. It might not be a one-year improvement where you're thinking, okay, we're just going to start having butts and seats. This is going to take some time, and it's going to take some patience. And, for better or worse, it's going to take some consistent investment. You do investment into the team. It's hard sometimes to blame fans for saying, well, when we say show me more than 1 year of or one or two signings, bring in a couple different guys and prove to me you're willing to invest for more than 1 or 2 seasons.
I think that's the key. I think you nailed it. It's a situation, and with Robert Kraft, you can play the long game here. And if you're actually talking about moving to a stadium in Boston, then you can play the very long game because that's where you're going to be long term. But yeah, it's consistent. It's showing that, hey, this is a new day for the Revolution. You want the biggest thing I think they could do to signify that? New logo, please. Please. Not the 1996 escaped skateboard team logo from, I don't know, I'm not up on my skateboard stuff. Thrasher, I guess. Can we get a new logo for the Revolution?
The swoosh stripes with the flag and the soccer ball?
It's a joke. It's awful. No, I know what it is. It's terrible. It's bad. Don't do it. Get rid of it. Rebrand. Keep the name. The name's fine. I don't have a problem with the name.
Bring back Patriot Pete.
No, don't bring back Patriot Pete. This is the Revolution. Get something that actually looks like a soccer team, not a skateboard logo. Something, please. Do it now so you can be taken seriously as a soccer team. You want to draw fans? You want all this investment to mean something? Actually look like a soccer club. We've all been out of shape and joked and been angry about the United team names and the FCs and the SCs and badges and crests, but they look like soccer teams, don't they? Don't they have some authenticity to it? Does the Revolution branding look like anything that you would see in the Champions League? Nope. And that's a big part of it. So you want to be taken seriously? That's the first thing that I would do going into 2020 would be refresh, please. It's time. Let's go to our final break. We'll come back, wrap up everything on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me.
I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
And we're back. Final segment, Soccer Down Here, Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, January 17th, 2 weeks away from the end of the transfer window in Europe. Yep, it might go down to that. Just be ready. That's where we're at. Let's see how Newcastle does this weekend, though. I really think you could get some crazy conversation if Newcastle loses this weekend to Cardiff. I really think you're going to get some just bonkers reporting out of Newcastle if that goes down, if they lose to Cardiff. And I think, is it Southampton that's right there too? I think they've got a tough match. But if Newcastle gets like 3, 4, 5 points out of getting out of the drop zone,
Southampton has Everton at St. Mary's, but remember,
That's
Southampton played, but they played midweek in FA Cup and had to go. I want to say that they had to go right to the end, if not to extra time, to get it done. So they're coming off a short week.
But how much first choice did they go there? Because I know Newcastle did the same, and they did not go with much of a first choice group.
I think they were pretty first choice until late in the match when they had to bring in academy kids.
No, maybe they just don't rate Newcastle's challenge of getting out of the bottom three. Maybe they just don't care about Newcastle. It's possible.
But right now, as things stand, Huddersfield and Fulham are adrift. Newcastle is 1 point behind Cardiff and Southampton, and only 3 points behind Burnley and 4 behind Crystal Palace. So 14 through 20 are still in that group.
Fulham's not completely out of it. Huddersfield is, and Newcastle is right in the thick of it. So we'll see what happens this weekend. A couple final thoughts on the Twitters. El Mataflo, any hot takes on academy player breakouts this year, homegrowns on the first team included? I think we might see Kunga this year. I would agree. I think Lagos is a player that we've mentioned a few times as a guy who fits into what Frank de Boer likes out of his wingers. He's a guy who thrives in 1v1 situations. He's a typical young player. I think you just need that consistency out of him, and you need to know when he hits the field what you're going to get. I think we saw more of that as the year went on with ATL UTD too, John. I thought his consistency improved, and I thought his just overall work on and off the ball improved in the last couple matches.
Yeah, and to me also, you could see him growing into the games, and his confidence seemed to improve as well. His confidence in being engaged in the play, being a part of the play, even if he wasn't on the ball. So I like the idea of Lagos being one of those breakouts, to put the word in quotes.
Yeah, I think there was a late game where he made a big tackle that led to a goal, and that's stuff that you didn't really associate with Lagos previously. Also, El Mataflo has a good question. Since Jackson Conway's on a USL deal, he can only be signed in times of great hardship, right? Yeah, which doesn't happen. Like, field players are never going to be signed in times of great hardship because it's not about position for field players, because you just have to play somebody out of position. You'd have to have, I believe, let's see, if you have a 30-man roster and you have 3 goalkeepers, that's 27 field players. I think to get to a situation where you would be allowed a signing in a time of great hardship, you would have to have 14 players injured who are unable to play out of your 30-man roster. Yeah, it's not likely to happen. So It's not. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, about Conway is he could play in Open Cup matches because you can sign a player to a short-term contract to play in Open Cup. You can sign them to a short-term contract to play in CONCACAF Champions League as well, but Atlanta United's not going to do that because you're going to take this very seriously. That was in there back when you had group stage games, and you'd occasionally get a group stage game that didn't matter, and you didn't want to play first-choice guys, and you'd bring up guys on a short-term contract to play in that. Would not surprise me at all. And last year we saw, Jarrett, correct me, I think it was Josef Samuel was the only one who got that call up on a short term in Open Cup play, and he didn't see the field in Kennesaw. With this crowded schedule, wouldn't be a shock to see somebody like a Conway, like a Kisiadu, like a Josef Samuel get that opportunity in U.S. Open Cup this summer.
No, another name in this, he might not get past the second team. But another guy I want to see more from is Neil McDonald. Liked a lot of what we saw from him with the twos last year. I want to see him get more time on the field with the twos and see what he can be.
Now, keep in mind, in terms of the short-term call-up contracts, that can't apply to an academy player. It has to be a USL contracted player. So, Neil McDonald, I think, could be a breakout player for USL this year, but he wouldn't be able, unless he signs a USL deal, to play an Open Cup. That's where these contracts get silly, but that's welcome to American soccer. It's what we do.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys that we got to see that were at the bottom of the roster last year for ATL UTD2 that I want to see in year two and see how they've grown.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch the second team. Waiting to see who will be named as the new manager of ATL UTD2. Waiting to see where Scott Donnelly ends up as well. And mentioning Kunga El Mataflo, I remember the conversation I had with Donnelly after the season. We issued it as a 1v1 podcast here. I was really impressed because we talked a little bit more afterwards just about Lagos and his development, and you could tell that Scott really put a lot of time into helping him develop on and off the field and become that professional that you want to see day in and day out. And I think if Lagos gets more time with the first team this year, he'll definitely give Scott Donnelly a shout-out. So I think Donnelly had a big impact on him last season, and not just all the work on the training ground or in matches. I think a lot of it was just conversations about, you have an opportunity now to, put food on the table and take care of your family and earn a paycheck playing this game. And you have the ability to do that for as long as you're able to play. That's the type of ability Lagos Kunga has, and now it's just growing into that. And can he be a first-team player for Atlanta United? I don't know yet. And I think a lot of young players, you're like that. It's like you need to see it for a little while until you know for sure. Lagos is a guy that definitely fits into it. If you haven't seen Leeds United Twitter lately, I do recommend you go check it out at LUFC. One, they had a great response to the reporter who owned it and took the L, but the reporter who said that, well, Marcelo Bielsa is coming to resign, this is what I'm hearing. It was epic tweet response to that. And now you're having Leeds United go at Pizza Hut because they decided to chime in about Spygate, and Leeds just thrashed them forever. And it's good times. LUFC on Twitter. Go check them out. I'm very impressed with Leeds. I pledge my allegiance to Leeds United at this point.
And Newell's Old Boys.
Oh, of course, and Newell's Old Boys. I mean, obviously, that's an easy one. I mean, it's funny because we get these things, and Tony Jabroni shares this. MLS Buzz, MLS_Buzz on Twitter is a nice compilation site. I will give MLS_Buzz on Twitter a lot of credit for having this in the bio. Star, all caps. I'm not an insider. I just share what I find. So let's keep that in mind, because the tweet is, Club America are reportedly on the market for players in MLS, with Tito Villalba reportedly at the top of Miguel Herrera's list. Atlanta United have reportedly put a $6 million price tag on Villalba 2 years after buying him for around $3 million. 1, 2, 3 reportedly's there. And I think this is because Club America's president said a few days ago they were looking at players who were getting call-ups to their national team. Villalba fits that bill. He played for Herrera for a very short time on loan at Xolos in 2016. I mean, if we want to connect all the dots, and Medio Tiempo, which is a good outlet in Mexico, does have a little more on this, but there's a lot of reportedlys in it. Reportedly. We'll have to see. I think a lot of it comes down to how things go in this first half of the season. I'd be surprised if anything happened now. In this first half of the season, one, does Miguel Herrera stay at Club America? Because that seems to be a week-to-week sort of thing, as most managers in Liga MX are. What the lineup looks like here. I could easily see, and there's been questions about it, in a 4-3-3, as we know Frank de Boer likes to play. In a 4-3-3, I could see a front line of Pity Martinez, if he's on the left, if he's here, or Ezequiel Barco over there. I could see Josef Martinez in the middle. I could see Tito Villalba on the right. Easily. Could easily see that setup, and I think Tito would thrive in that setup. Does he get the opportunity? Can he stay healthy? Can he impress the new manager? Can he produce? Those are the questions, and that's the stuff we're going to learn. I think first half of the season, and let's get your takes on this too, John and Jarrett, real quick before we go. I don't think we know really anything about a first-choice 11 until that break in June. I think it's going to be a fairly regular rotation in games that are prioritized of 15 to 16 guys. I think that's a fair number that you'll be looking at a lot in the early part of the season. What do you think this first half of the season looks like, Jarrett, in terms of how minutes are divided up?
I'd like to think most of it goes to CONCACAF Champions League. And at that point, I think, you're going to focus more on getting your starters there and seeing kind of the peripheral of the squad get some minutes in league play and basically let part of the squad figure out who's going to be 11 through 18 or 12 through 18, excuse me, and 12 through 20 even. Who is going to be those guys who demand, to be the first name on the sheet when a starter needs a break? And I think that'll be the first part of this season, is figuring that part out. Because remember, we learned nothing from CONCACAF Champions League last year, it's that, it was Toronto having all the injuries and not bouncing back. But CONCACAF Champions League ended with plenty of time for Toronto to climb back into the picture. CONCACAF Champions League is going to end with plenty of time for Atlanta to crawl back into the picture should they struggle in league play early on, because they're focused on Champions League, which I hope they are. But the chances for those players who might not be the Champions League 11 to fight for position, I think the early league games are going to be key for that, to see who's going to demand those spots.
John, what are you looking for in the first half of the season up to that June break?
Looking at pretty much players 1 through 11 and then 12 through 22. And for me, it's almost going to be a game-by-game basis with all of the competitions that are going at you, because if something happens in CONCACAF Champions League where you can take a rest from the first result and you can rotate some players and rotate some squad. I mean, for me, it's going to be taking it a game at a time. And that sounds like a very coaching cliche, but I want to see how the depth is laid out with all of the players in training camp. I want to see what it looks like going through Herediano and going through CONCACAF Champions League. So for me, it's like staring at a long roster sheet and then taking it a game at a time and going, okay, this is that first choice lineup, but who in training is making their play to be that next guy, as Jarrett says. And so I'm looking at 1 through 11 as much as I am 12 through 22, just because of the number of competitions. And it is going to be a game at a time for me.
Yeah, I think it will be too. I think you're going to see things move around a little bit as Frank de Boer gets to know the squad, as he tries different things out, and he has to experiment against different opponents. And then you're always going to have those opportunities, especially in that first month, where you could see some guys who are maybe outside of that top 18, 16 guys right now force their way in when they get those opportunities while CONCACAF Champions League is going on. Because I think you're going to have to see some deeper squads in those early MLS games. And if players produce, I think they'll continue to get opportunities. So it's going to be a fun ride. I think it's going to be different than we've seen the last 2 years because Tata Martino liked a smaller group that he relied on. I think Frank de Boer's going to open it up a little bit more. I think guys are going to get more opportunities to show what they can do. Now, they have to show it in training. Guys who get time with ATL UTD2, they're going to have to show it there as well. Time's going to have to be earned. But I feel like there might be more opportunities to earn it under Frank de Boer and with this type of schedule as well. So it's going to be an interesting ride, and these next 2 weeks of the silly season are going to be a very interesting ride as we all wait to see what's going to happen with Miguel Almiron, Pity Martinez, Ezequiel Barco, the whole package. We'll see. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll also have a Friday flashback question of the day that'll go out tomorrow morning on our Twitter account at Soccer Down Here. If you got any suggestions, we'll take them. Go ahead and tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll see what we go with a Friday flashback. But we'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You can listen on the Soccer Down Here app. You can listen on soccerdownhere.net. You can listen on Spreaker. If you're listening to us on the Barn Burner platform in Canada or ESPN Coastal and overnights in Savannah and Brunswick, Georgia, or the XL Sports Network in Middle Georgia, thank you all so much. And if you want to join us live, we're on at 9 in the morning, and you can tweet along with us during the show at Soccer Down Here. Much plati, y'all.
Much plati, y'all.